All right, so that was Afghan ambassador to India there. And we're also joined in by our correspondent, Anas Malik, who's presently live in Kabul, and he's joining us from Kabul. Now, good morning to you, Anas. Bring us up to speed with what is happening in Herat, where we are given to understand that the Taliban fighters claim to have made a lot of inroads there.
Well, fighting seems to continue all around Afghanistan. In the past 24 hours, more than 10 provinces have reported attacks from the Taliban. At least 30 plus attacks have been reported. But interestingly, the most intense fightings have been reported in two particular areas. One in Helmand, in its capital in Lashkargah. There were reports of Lashkargah falling. And secondly, the one in Herat, the province of Herat, and in Herat city as well. Two of its key districts in Herat city, the Karukh district that has been claimed by the Taliban, that is in the city center, and the Gozara district which houses the Herat airport, that was claimed by the Taliban as well, that it had fallen. Late last night we saw airstrikes from the US forces coming in at Herat. And after that, we saw advancements from the Afghan security forces, after which now it is said that Gozara district has fallen back to the government control. This is the third time in a span of just 9 days when Gozara district has been attacked. The Herat airport continues to remain closed. This is the third day. Today is the third day since Herat airport is currently closed, and there seems to be no end in sight. Former Mujahideen leader and senior leader of the Jamiat-e-Islami, Ismail Khan, his militia have been putting up a tough fight to the Taliban. They've been resisting the Taliban from entering the Herat city. We understand that the Taliban already ruled two parts of the province in Herat, two border crossings in Herat. One with Turkmenistan. My apologies, the one with Tajikistan, the Sher Khan Bandar, and the one with Iran, the Islam Qila border crossing. So Taliban seems to continue with their advances.
Right.
The Afghan forces are pushing them back. The US Air Force is giving aerial support, and that is the reason of which Taliban continues to inflict heavy damage upon the Taliban as well. The government has claimed that in the past 24 hours, more than 140 plus Taliban fighters have died in the government operations. Yes,
right. Now, Anas, if you can bring us up to, shed more light on the level of US involvement in this fighting, because there are conflicting reports. Some would say that with the help of American air support, the Afghan army was able to push back the Taliban. But then we also hear news that the Taliban was able to attack the United Nations office in Herat. So what is the level of US involvement in the fighting between the Afghan forces and the Taliban?
Well, the US is supporting the Afghan government when it comes to aerial support, but because the Afghan forces are not that equipped. So the US has been regularly conducting airstrikes. There were airstrikes in the daytime yesterday in Boldak area. The Taliban who had captured Russian tanks and were using that as for their operations. The same Russian tanks which had been abandoned more than 30 years ago, they were being made operational by the Taliban in Boldak area and being used. Those particular hideouts were bombed. Those particular tanks were bombed. And we saw footages coming in from the Taliban showing those tanks on fire. The US has been actively bombing the areas with heavy Taliban presence, where the Taliban have been making advancements, especially near to the border region, be that Boldak and as latest as that of being in Herat. Yesterday we saw a UN office coming under attack. One police official who was on guard at the UN office lost his life. The UN had put out a statement saying that this amounts to, in response to the Afghan Taliban statement, that this amounts to war crimes as well. The Afghan Taliban had claimed that, quote unquote, this could have been crossfire. The UN or the UNAMA had strongly rebutted that this was no crossfire and this was an armed attack. This is what the UN has maintained. The US, as we speak, there are reports that the US has put some of its troops on ground in Kandahar to give support to the Afghan government. What I understand is, from having spoken to local sources, that this is the US SSF to help with the airstrikes with regards to the coordinates and others, so that the Afghan government can have a helping hand as they try to make ingress and progress on ground. So the US involvement has been there. It is minimal, but even that minimal involvement, that is serving as a major morale booster or as a major support to the Afghan forces on ground as and when they try to make progress. Yes, Ali.
Absolutely, indeed. My last question to you, Anas, is about the peace negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan government. We're given to understand that the talks, of course, were continuing. But with this increased fighting, does it now effectively mean that, the group that is able to win on the field of battle is the one that will rule Kabul now?
Well, as we speak, the talks are at a stalemate. There haven't been any progress per se. The Taliban are insistent that the Afghan government, or precisely President Ashraf Ghani, has to resign, and only then there can be some movement forward. They have been saying, they have been advancing, they have been claiming that they would want to have peace, they would want to attain peace, and that the onus lies on the Afghan government. The Afghan government says the same as well on the Taliban. There seems to be a turf for a battle in order to get a hold or get a grip, so that they can negotiate, the Taliban can negotiate from the position of power. That seems to be their entire motive. But there is a change in strategy for the Taliban as well. As I had said previously, the Afghan forces, the ground forces, they would want to fight, but they are disappointed in the political leadership, and the Taliban seem to have been making that to their advantage, taking that to their advantage. They've been indulging in psyops. I'll give you an example of Sher Khan Bandar. It was surrounded, and when the Taliban saw the Taliban had surrounded the entire Sher Khan Bandar area, the dry port, and they had forced the government forces to surrender when they made sure that there were no reinforcements that were coming. So the Taliban are indulging in psyops as well, but their motive is very clear. They would want to have that upper hand on the negotiating table, as and when they sit down, and they would not want to be seen as somebody, as the force that wants to bulge down. Remember, the US leaving Afghanistan serves as a major morale booster, because the Taliban commanders say that if they claim that as their victory. They say that if they can quote-unquote push US out in 20 years, then they can push out anybody, be that the Afghan government as well. Yes, Saleh.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Anas Malik, for joining us and getting us all those updates. So it's exactly a month that the American forces will be out of Afghanistan. 31st of August is the deadline that President Joe Biden has, of course, given, and it remains to be seen as to what actually unfolds in Afghanistan in the interim. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.